welcome back to another edition of Around the Association. I'm your host, Charles Fallon, back in here with another episode. And boy, do we have a lot to talk about today. It's been a while, obviously. It's been rather brief off season. It feels like it really went by like that. But the 2026 season, obviously, now in the rear view, and we're talking 2027 now. Hard to believe this is the 13th season of the ASCA's modern era. And a bunch of new storylines really have taken over the sport heading into the new year. And it's all about the young kids now. Um, we'll be breaking down the entire youth movement, the rookies. I think that's going to be one of the easily, probably the biggest storyline heading into the new year. That plus the championship fight. Will we see a repeat of last year between Braden Bennett and Todd Kidd? Obviously, we know that's probably the greatest finish to a title decider in ASC history. Could we see Act 2 in 2027? We'll preview the Craftsman series season. We'll preview the Truck series season. We'll preview this upcoming week at Speedweeks at the all-new Ajax Superspeedway. $75 million in renovations later, complete reconfiguration. It's a brand new track with a completely different package to last year. So it's going to be very interesting to see how all of that comes into play, because I think the racing is going to be completely different to what we've been used to seeing at that 2 mile circuit located in Speedway, Indiana. And then we'll break down all of Speed Weeks. It's going to be 5 days straight of action, and I absolutely cannot wait for it. But first, before we get into it, we got to shout out the ASCA's merch shop. You already know, if you want to cop one of your favorite drivers' gear, just click that link. And should be in the description, I believe. It's been a while since I've plugged the merch shop, but it should be in the description, and you can cop your favorite drivers' merch. Braden Bennett, Todd Kidd, Graham Doherty, Chris Barrymore, it doesn't matter who it is. Well, as long as it's one of the sport's biggest stars, the merch should be up on the shop, and you can cop it right there. And then also got a shout out Circle B Diecast / Plan B sales. Use coupon code ASCA for free shipping on any orders $20 or more inside the US. So without further ado, let's get into it. And we'll begin by talking about the young kids, as I mentioned, because they have been the talk of the off season, and they are taking over the sport. I think it really dawned on me while I was looking at the driver profiles on the official ASC Instagram how many new faces have taken over the Cup Series in recent years. Like, you don't have, obviously Randall Woods is gone. You don't have Norm Lester anymore. He retired. Nick Arcidi retired. Jimmy Hood retired. Brian Braun retired. There's so many iconic names that you're so used to seeing in rides throughout the years that have come and gone. And now it's just a lot of new faces, new names, new stories being written, like the Colin Wards, the Braden Bennett's, the Shane Parks, the Carson Schmitz, and now, of course, you have the even younger crop of kids coming up through the ranks, the Graham Dartys, the Tony Delvals, the Caden Dunhams, the Gunnar Thorsons. Yeah, the youth movement is out. It's here. It's in full force, and it has arrived at the top level of the sport. And we've kind of known that this has been brewing for a couple years now, seeing, specifically the likes of Darty and Delval and even Thorson kind of at the Craftsman level, kind of finding their footing in the ASCA and, winning their first race and competing with the Cup guys on a weekly basis. But then, obviously last year they ran it back for a second season. Thorson wins the championship. Delval, he won a race, won the 2MyPC.com 150 again. Doherty goes up to the cup level, obviously does what he does, has a fantastic rookie campaign. And then there's Caden Dunham coming out of nowhere, absolutely lighting the Craftsman series on fire. Um, and now you got all these guys now up competing against the best of the best at 21, 20, 20, and 19 years of age. So these are extremely young kids, competing against the sport's best drivers. And it it's eerily reminiscent to the youth movement that we saw at the beginning of the modern era. You remember that with guys like Todd Kidd and Greg Healy and Chris Barrymore and Doug Bowden and Caleb Henderson Jr. and all these other young guys. Ryan Dixon, he was a part of it as well. It's crazy to think that was over a decade ago. And now you fast forward, those guys are the veterans. They were the veterans of the sport. They've been in for a decade. They've written their own story, written their own legacy, and now they're tutoring this youth movement that's coming through the ranks. And that kind of just goes to show, how old um you are if you've been watching the sport for that long, that you've seen basically an entire generation of drivers come up through the ranks. And this youth movement, they watched that old youth movement. For a lot of these young guys, those guys in the previous youth movement, their predecessors, those were their favorite drivers growing up. Doherty born in 2006, Del Valle born in 2007, Thorson 2007, Dunham 2008. You got guys like Garrett Hood being born in 2009. You feel old yet, because you should, because these guys are teenagers, late teenagers, some of them 20, 21. It's crazy. But yeah, so that's enough of kind of reminiscing on how they got here. Let's talk about how they're going to perform at the cup level, because I think it's a giant question mark. And I think that Graham Doherty has kind of slanted the scale for rookies in a, I wouldn't say unattainable direction, but I don't think that his performance last year should be the norm. Like Doherty, I think we've known since he won in his second start that this kid is a generational talent. He's special. And I think that sure, a Caden Dunham, I think, could easily perform to that level. We saw what he did at the Craftsman series last season. It wouldn't shock me if he goes out, wins a race, and finishes top 10 in points. But I think that having those expectations, like, you shouldn't be disappointed if none of these guys end up living up to that level, or even putting in a Braden Bennett or a Colin Ward type rookie season. I think that's asking too much of kids that are this young. I think that a solid rookie season for these guys would be, it's tough to say. I think you obviously want to see them finish all the laps. You want to see as little amount of DNFs as possible. I think that's obvious. You want them to get as much seat time as possible and just gather experience. But you want to see them click off top tens, because all these guys, they're in relatively competitive equipment. I'd say Dunham is in the worst equipment of all of them. I think, yeah. So Del Valle, Dunham, Thorson, I would say Dunham's probably in the worst equipment of all of them at CJ Barrymore Racing. But we know that CBR is not a bad team. They just won a championship about a half decade ago. So they're not a bad team in the slightest. I think just focusing on Del Valle, Dunham, and Thorson, you just want to see them log laps, get experience, get seat time, and continue to grow and develop throughout the season. And you want to see them, maybe early on the season, they're fighting for top 15s, and then later on the year, they're fighting for top 10s and top 5s, and maybe even leading laps and scoring poles. That's kind of the growth and development you want to see throughout the campaign. And obviously limiting the mistakes, because there's going to be mistakes from all of these guys earlier on in the season and as the year goes on. But, as time goes on, they continue to learn and grow and develop. You want to see those mistakes get cut down and them really start to establish themselves as, hey, we could be potential sophomore surge candidates heading into 2028. Now, as for Graham Doherty, I think it's an entirely different set of expectations. And I think this championship odds kind of bear that out, that people really think he can make a title push this season. And I don't disagree with that, but I also think it'd be foolish to bet on it right now. Remember, this is a kid that just turned 21. Um, he's still extremely young, and obviously he's mega talented. Don't get me wrong, he's mega talented. He's well ahead of his years, but I think to expect him to be in a real deal title fight already, I think that's a little much. I think that's too much pressure on the kid. Um, I think that he'll be solid. I wouldn't be shocked if he finishes top 5 in points, but can he compete with Todd Kidd, Braden Bennett, Shane Park, Colin Ward, even his own teammate Diego, if he's back on his form? I don't know. I think there's room for him up there, with the likes of Randall Woods and Norm Lester and Nick Orchidi and these guys retiring. There's a void up there for, new contenders to really turn into perennial championship guys. But I just don't know if Doherty is, not to say he's mature enough, but I just don't know if he has the experience to quite take that next step. Um, so yeah, I do expect him to break out and become the team leader at OBR this season. I think that I wouldn't be shocked if he wins multiple races and has a sophomore surge, but I think that championship run, I think that let's pump the brakes on that and hold off until, I would say, next season, 2028. I think that's when you can say, okay, he's a real deal championship contender. So yeah, I think he'll definitely have a sophomore surge, but title push, I don't know about all that. And then, as for the rookies, I think that the Dunham title push, I think that's ridiculous. I know Dunham, in the interview that we did, I know he said, he expects to win the championship this year. He's not going to win the championship this year, and he's not even going to be close to it. But that's okay because he's 19 years old and he's not supposed to be close to it. I think that you just want to see him, Del Valle, and Thorson continue to perfect their racecraft, continue to grow and develop as young drivers, continue to cut down on mistakes and keep them as minimal as possible, and just continue to grow and develop throughout the campaign. So that's that. On the youth movement, I think that it's going to be incredibly fun watching these guys race each other on a weekly basis, and specifically watching them race the best of the best, because if you've watched the Craftsman series the past 2 years, you've gotten a preview of what we're about to see this season, these young guys going at it. And the Craftsman series has been crazy fun to watch. Since all this influx of young talent has really come through the ranks. So yeah, I can't wait to see how these guys do. And it's going to be incredibly fun to watch. But let's talk championship, and let's talk. We had to bring it up again. It's something that's going to be brought up, I think, pretty much throughout the entire season until we get a resolution to basically if Todd Kidd gets his revenge or not. I can't wait to see Braden Bennett versus Todd Kidd on track side by side for the first time in 2027. I don't know what's going to happen, but I just know it's going to be crazy. And will we get Act 2 between Braden Bennett and Todd Kidd? That is the question that we're all wondering. Because obviously last year, it's weird because the championship fight, it wasn't like in 2025 where you knew all season, it's going to be Todd Kidd versus Diego Orchidi. No, it was the title fight was just wide open all year. You had guys like Shane Park, you had Colin Ward, you had Bryn Renner leading the points for a bit, you had Greg Healy up there. Randall Woods was kind of semi up there. And then you had Todd Kidd, who was down last in points. He gradually worked his way back up. But then halfway through the season, he's like 7th in points, looking like, okay, it's just not going to be his year. And then the second half of the season, he just goes crazy. And it seemed like the 9 team finally figured out the regulations. And yeah, they went off. He had all those top 3 finishes in a row, and he pushes it to a title decider. And then obviously the rest is history. Um, will Todd Kidd get his revenge on the reigning champion? That is a question that we're all wondering. And I don't know. I think that it'd be wise to. I'm rather bullish on, I believe that's the word, bullish on Kidd stock heading into this season. To say the least, I think that he is at the top of his game right now. He's certainly in the prime of his career. He's 31 years old. Um, we saw, I got a chance to sit down with him in the off season. He seems locked in. He seems laser focused, and he seems to be driving at the highest level he has been at his entire career. I think that last year bared that out. I think last year was even more impressive than his 2025 championship run, just based on all the adversity that he and that team had to deal with throughout the campaign to come that close to winning a championship. That was massively impressive to me. And I think that we're going to see an even better version of Kidd now that he's pissed off. He's still mad about it, what went down at the end of last year. So, and then you look at the testing speed that they've had for the 9 team. I very bullish on their title hopes this year. Braden Bennett, I don't know how to feel about Bennett. Testing was terrible for the 11 team, but they said they were experimenting. Obviously, he's going to be a title contender. He's a defending Cup Series champion for a reason. And let's not take away from what he did last year. I know people are going to call it a Mickey championship. Oh, he didn't deserve it. Oh, he's dirty. Man, we talked about this. You got to do what you got to do to win a title. He's going to be a factor this year in competing for the championship. No ifs, ands, or buts. No doubt about it. But yeah, the testing results do give me some cause for concern, to say the least. They weren't good, obviously. So I don't want to see that. If they're slow out the gate, I think that they're going to take an L this season, because Todd Kidd and that 9 team, they're not starting off on the back foot. They've had a full off season to focus solely on these new regulations compared to the 2026 off season, where they were focused fully on 2025 and then had to switch to the new regs last minute. That's why they started out behind. Now this year they're solely focused on the new regs, and I think that the 9 team is going to come out firing on all cylinders, and Bennett cannot afford to get off to a slow start, because Kidd, he's going to have his foot on the throttle from race 1, and Bennett is going to need to be able to keep up. Basically, that. I think that's the name of the game, to be honest with you. So, will Kidd get his revenge on the champ? I think it's certainly plausible. It might not be mano a mano. He might just take his revenge out on the entire field. But all I can say is I think that you can definitely tell that deep down, Todd Kidd, he's still bitter. He's still hurt about it, and he's going to take that out in the competition this year. I'm scared to see what a pissed off Todd Kidd means for the competition this year, and I don't think the competition wants to know. So I'm just going to leave it at that on that one. Yeah, let's also talk about a couple other names who I think could be up there. Shane Park. I don't know what to think about Shane Park at this point. Every year, I'm waiting for him to take the next step and actually win an oval race, or actually at least win multiple races. And well, he did in 2025. He won multiple races, but he still finished 3rd in points. Last year, again, he only won 1 race. I mean, it was a great comeback, because it looked like he was having a terrible season at one point. He was like 15th, 6 races in. And then he comes back and finishes 3rd. Great, but you need to be winning championships. And he signed that long-term extension with Ronnie Woods Motorsports, which I don't think is a positive omen for his title hose, because let's face it, at Ronnie Woods Motorsports, he is always going to be second fiddle to Todd Kidd, especially considering he signed a contract as long as Todd Kidd's current deal with the team. So he's always going to be that team's number 2 driver. And we've seen mano a mano outside of Michigan, where he won his maiden race. Congratulations. We saw at San Diego, Kidd he took Park's lunch money. Even Colin Ward has taken Shane Park's lunch money at Michigan earlier this season last season, I should say, for his first win. So I don't like that for Park. At this point, I'm bearish on Park in his championship stock. I don't know, man. I don't think he has what it takes. I thought he might take that next step. He still hasn't. Granted, he's only 26, so there's still room for him to grow, but not much more. I think right now he's in the prime of his career. I have a hard time thinking he's going to get much better than he is right now. Like, he is performing at a high level, but if you want to win a championship, you obviously have to be the best of the best. You got to be at Todd Kidd, Diego Urquidy, Braden Bennett type levels. And I still have yet to see Park kind of elevate his way to that form just yet. Colin Ward is an interesting one. I think that if he signed a long-term deal with Ronnie Woods Motorsports, I'd be all in on Colin Ward as the championship favorite. But considering that pen hasn't been put to paper yet, he still doesn't have his long-term future sorted out. I don't know, man. Will that be a distraction? I don't know. Will Ronnie Woods Motorsports even want to put as much resources into his cars as they will with Kidd, Park, and even Chris Barrymore, considering they're all going to be there long term? I don't know. It's a tough one. I think there's too many variables pointing against Colin Ward right now, too much uncertainty surrounding his future to really consider him a title threat. I think the same could be said for Carson Schmidt as well, considering the mess of a situation it appears to be at Urquidy Bros Racing, with OBR trying to buy out his contract in the offseason and Ford saying no. That just seems like a recipe for disaster. That relationship is certainly toxic. I don't think they're going to do much this season. I think they might win a race. They might finish top 10 in points, but that's about it. We already talked about Doherty. I don't think so. I don't think this year could be it. Diego. Let's talk about Diego. Could he get back in the mix? I think the answer on that one is yes. I think Diego is certainly going to be a factor in this title fight. I don't think he's washed. I think people that are saying he's washed are mistaken. I think that they're just letting their hate for him kind of cloud their judgment. Diego, I think he still got some stuff left in the tank. Last year it was an abject disaster, but it was a disaster for Ford across the board. It seems like whatever issues that the Blue Ovals had, they figured it out, they've ironed them out, and they're ready to go for 2027. If you give Diego the equipment, you give him a crew chief that can somewhat keep his ego and his emotions in check, which is so far, granted, it's only been preseason testing, but so far, Seth Fowler seems to have done that. He seems to have Diego in the right mental block. I think that Diego can get back to his 2020, 2023, 2024, 2025 form, where he was that's peak Diego right there. That 3-year stretch, that's peak Diego. I think he can very easily get back to that. I mean, that was just a year ago. Granted, he is the oldest driver in the sport right now at 36 years of age. So he's not a spring chicken anymore. He's old. Like, he's a grandpa in ASCA years. And you wonder how many more seasons does he have left in the tank? I don't know, honestly, but I think that he could very well be out there. I think I did predict him to win his 5th championship in the Fallon corner. I'm sticking by that. I definitely think he's going to be a factor this year. So keep an eye on that 22. I think that he's going to carry the banner for Ford this season. And I think that's really it for the main championship contenders. like I said, I don't expect any of the rookies to be up there this season. I think it's crazy to expect that out of them. Greg Healy is an interesting one, but no, Snoots proved last season they are pretenders. They had a window, they blew it, and that's that. I think that now when you look at Ronnie Woods Motorsports being caught up, Michael White Racing obviously still being back to being dominant. Um, you look at CJ Barrymore Racing potentially improving, and some of these other teams improving. Ford improving in a big way across the board, or Key Bros Racing. I think they're going to be back. Since Enterprises had a window to compete last year and they blew it. They threw it away, they blew it, they pissed it down their leg. And I don't think they're going to get an opportunity like that again. I think that Healy definitely made a mistake on that long term extension. So I'm rather bearish on Healy and New Enterprises as a whole. I'm not feeling great about them competing for a championship. Now let's talk Craftsman Series and their championship fight. Craftsman Series is very interesting this season because obviously we talked about it with the youth movement. A lot of those young guys, Doval, Dunham, Thorson, they're all up at the cup level now. Even Matt Chamberlain, he's up at the cup level. Sean Wooden is now retired. He's sitting in Cancun sipping on margaritas or something. He's retired. So the entire top 5 in points from last year is gone. They're all gone. That means it's wide open. This is one of the most wide open seasons I can remember for a Craftsman Series championship in quite a bit. So yeah, I'm looking at obviously, you're looking at the marketing material. I think that the main favorites for the championship this year are Zach Tretton. I think Travis Wolf is certainly up there as well. A couple sophomore drivers who we anticipate kind of filling that void, taking that next step. They showed a lot towards the end of their rookie seasons. I think that they're due for sophomore surges. I think that Garrett Hood is obviously getting a lot of press, a lot of hype, just solely based on his last name. Will he merit that hype? I don't know. But obviously, it's extremely cool to have another Hood back on the grid. It's absolutely awesome. And I can't wait to see how he does, regardless, of if he lives up to the hype or not. I don't know if he will, but we'll see. So yeah, Garrett Hood for sure. I think it's going to be one to watch. I wouldn't say he's a title favorite though. I think Ryan Dixon as well is not being talked about enough as a championship favorite. This is a guy that has 10 career Craftsman Series victories. He's a 2016 Craftsman Series champion. He may be a mid-level cup driver, but in the Craftsman Series, we've seen time and time again, he'll come down and slap these boys up. Especially at Belltown. I mean, he's going to drop these dudes off easily at Belltown. Dixon, I think definitely a lot more people need to be paying attention to that 12 car this season. And I'm not going to say he's an upgrade from Sean Wooden, but he's certainly on Wooden's level, if not slightly better, And again, that's not to take away from Sean Wooden, but that's just how good of a talent that Ryan Dixon still is, even at 32 years of age. Like that 12 team, they're not going to be slouches this season. I think looking at the entirety of the Ford development program, Theo Russell is one, considering how dominant the 98 has been the past few seasons. If Theo Russell is any good, he's going to be a title contender. The problem is we don't know if he's any good. I think that he will be solid. I don't think he's anywhere near the levels of Darty or Dunham though, and that's the problem with following in their footsteps specifically. Like these are generational talents we're talking about here, and then so if you're like even just a good or a great talent, you're gonna be. It's going to look like you're underperforming compared to those two, considering they're just otherworldly. They're wonderkins. And then you come along and you win one race a year. Like that's obviously not going to look great. So I think Russell will be solid, but I think the 98 is certainly going to take a step back this season. That's kind of just judging off what we saw from Russell in his part-time starts last year. I don't think he's going to be anything. Not that he's going to be bad, but I just don't think he's going to be anything special. Jordan Reynard is an interesting one. I don't know how to feel about Reynard. I don't know, man. I don't know. I think that he certainly can take the next step up, but I wish I saw more out of him in his rookie season than what we ultimately did. So I don't know how to feel about Reynard. Yeah, I don't know. Will Moon, I'm out on the Will Moon sweepstakes. I don't think he's got it. Last year was his big opportunity to take the next step. He didn't. Um, I think he'll certainly do better at Michael White Racing, but championship contender, I think those days have passed. He's mid. Um, so yeah, I think that the big names to watch for, I think, will be Zach Tretton and Travis Wolf. I think that those are the big two. I think Ryan Dixon as well. Throw him in that mix as well. That's the third one. And then in terms of a rookie who could have a Dunham level breakout, I'm looking at Chandler Mills. I'm really bullish on him. 4-star prospect, Mesa, Arizona, 18 years of age, open wheel guy who's bound his footing in stock car racing. I think that I'm looking at him and seeing what the A car did last season with Matt Chamberlain behind the wheel. I think that Mills can certainly. I think Mills has more raw talent than Chamberlain, and he's going to be able to get even more out of that car than even Chamberlain was able to. So, yeah, that's the Craftsman series. Um, it's a lot of I don't knows. I think we're going to learn a lot over the course of the first few weeks of the campaign about who's the real deal and who's not. A lot of rookies this season. Again, like I said, the whole top 5 in points from last year is gone. So it's wide open. Anyone can take it this season, but it's a lot of I don't knows. If I had to hedge a bet on who I'd predict for the champion right now, I'd go with Ryan Dixon because he's the safe, proven option. But it really could be anyone. So we'll have to see on that one. Let's also talk the truck series as well. Doug Acosta absolutely made the series his what last season. He's on a new team this year in the 24. I have a hard time believing he's not going to be able to repeat considering what he did last year. He even defeated the reigning Cup Series champion in a race. I mean, he was unstoppable last year, and he's making low-level Cup Series money at the truck level. I mean, that's how much teams love this guy. Rising star to say the least. I think obviously he enters the year as a championship favorite. I think Brandon Adams showed a lot in his rookie campaign at the truck level as well. I think that he can certainly be a breakout star for Kirk Autosport. They've definitely got something there with him. We'll see if Drew Taylor is the real deal at the Craftsman level. But hey, Brandon Adams proved a lot in his rookie season, and he certainly might have more talent behind the wheel than his older brother Dustin. That's for sure. Yeah. I think you also got to look at Jack Brazier and Grayson Mayfield as guys to watch as well in terms of like 4-star prospects who could who have ties to major organizations, who you want to see take the next step and obviously win races, because neither of them want to race in 2026. You want to see them take the next step and win races in 2027. So we'll see if they're able to get the job done. I think that keeping an eye on those two, as well as Mason Brennan. He's another 4-star prospect for Michael White Racing. We'll see what he's able to do. Yeah, I think that really for the truck series, it's going to be looking at driver development more than anything. And especially for everyone that's not named Doug Acosta, because I think that Doug Acosta certainly bursted onto the scene in ASC scouts' radars as, hey, this kid, he's he's got something. He's got something. He is a talent to say the least. And really just coming out of nowhere last season and winning it all. That's the crazy part about it. So we'll see if he's able to repeat that feat, or maybe it was a fluke. I don't know, because he is on a brand new team this season. But like I said, I'm also watching Brandon Adams. I'm watching Jack Brazier. I'm also watching Grayson Mayfield, and Mason Brennan as well. Those those 5 names, I should say, those are my big 5, my Fab 5 to watch in the Truck Series in 2027. And definitely keep an eye on how those guys do, because I think that all 5 of them certainly have futures in the sport at the top 2 divisions. Now let's talk Speed Weeks. It's here. Speed Weeks right around the corner. I mean, literally, it's going to start next week or this week. I don't know. I don't know if this is going to drop on Saturday or Sunday. It's either going to be this week or next week, based on whatever time you're listening or watching this. But yeah, the major talking point Speed Weeks is Ajax Superspeedway itself. The track is completely different from what it was a year ago. The entire front stretch, well, the entire track has been reconfigured, but the entire front stretch, it's now completely different. It used to be a rectangle, basically, circuit. Now it's a quad oval. It's a much more curved front stretch, similar to what Computer Motor Speedway did with their reconfiguration. And then the back stretch is actually a lot more narrow. The turns are a lot wider, I believe. It's interesting. It's very interesting. I love it. I love the new look of it aesthetically. In terms of racing, I don't know how much it's going to affect the racing, but aesthetically, it looks fantastic. They're trying this new repave technology where the track surface is already weathered in 3 to 4 years. Basically making it where these guys can race anywhere, like from day one, which I think is awesome. So yeah, I think that there's a lot of questions in this that will be answered throughout Speed Weeks, basically, and all the different races. We get to see these guys go at it. I certainly cannot wait to see that. Yeah, but then you also got to factor in the new plate package as well. We're kind of old, the plate package, because it's basically the 2022 to 2025 plate package. Because last year, everyone complained the side drafting was OP. And I was one of those people who thought that was the case as well. Side draft too OP. These guys can make moves too easily. Man, this is crazy. It's all about the side drafting. But then we saw the racing without side drafting, and everyone wants to bring the side drafting back, because without side drafting, it's basically 4D chess. You're playing analytics. That's the only way you can make moves without side drafting. So, basically, the side drafting is back, which I think is a massive win. Analytics are going to be back, which everyone's going to be pissy about, but I really don't see why. Look, man, it's 2027. Like, they have all these computers, all these real-time data models. Why not use them? Why not use them to mitigate wrecks? We didn't really see any big ones, quote unquote, last year, probably because of the analytics. We did see accidents caused by analytics, but we didn't see any major accidents, though. So I get why people hate them, but it's 2027. You got to get with the times, man. This isn't just, let's run out here willy-nilly doing whatever the hell we want to do. Like, no, if you have a chance to make plate racing an exact science, you got to take it. And I think that's exactly what the teams have done here. And I think that now, especially with guys like Randall Woods and Norm Luster retired, I think that with the driver aids as a whole being lowered, I think that teams and drivers specifically are going to be much more willing to embrace it, because you're talking a lot. younger of a demographic, a lot younger kids racing, basically, who know nothing else but analytics and all this advanced data and sabermetrics and all this sort of stuff. So, yeah, like I said, to see how the plate package races, I obviously we'll get to see it with the shootout and the duels and all that sort of stuff, the racing this week. But the analytics, I'm glad those are here to stay. I also do want to talk about the new rule at the end of races, the end of race procedure. Basically, I think that's a pretty interesting solution that the ASCA came up with to obviously the controversy in the Fast and All 200 last year. Yeah, I think it's a pretty neat rule, giving the fans what they want, but also not making it too gimmicky. I think that's a good compromise, and I certainly think that we're going to get our first true look at that rule at some point during Speedweeks with how many accidents we tend to see at Ajax Superspeedway. But yeah, I can't wait to see the new track in action, the old package in action, and the analytics in action for that matter. So let's talk about seeing it in action. Let's break down Speedweeks. It's here. We got the shootout. We've got Ajax 200 pole qualifying. We now have the Truck Series opener. Now that the series isn't being ran during the Cup and Craftsman all season, we've got the Truck Series opener. We've got the duels. We've got the Craftsman Series opener, and we've got the Cup Series opener. So we've got a bunch of action throughout this entire week. And yeah, I don't even know where to begin with this because it's a lot to break down. Making picks and predictions, I think, for this is impossible, but I think that going back and looking at the trends for each of these races, I think you look at the shootout. The shootout tends to be in Rikitti Bros Racing dominated race. All three drivers will be entered in the show. Carson Schmidt, former shootout winner. Diego Rikitti, I think he's a 3-time shootout winner. And then Graham Doherty, this is going to be his first appearance in the shootout. So we'll see how he does. Wouldn't be shocked if he wins it, though. Also, Colin Ward, the defending winner just last season, really kind of stole it because it was Shane Park and Braden Bennett going at it on the final lap, and then a hole opened up because those two were blocking each other, and Ward just drove right through it and won the race. So, yeah, I think that the young superstars, they've won this race the past couple of seasons. I think that don't be shocked if, it's a Ward or a Schmidt or even a Darty that ends up winning one of these deals, but it could be a veteran. It could be someone like Diego, winning it for a 4th time. It shocks me that Todd Kidd has never won this race. That is mind-blowing to me. He came close in 2023, but never ended up winning it. So yeah, that's mind-blowing to me, to say the least. I certainly think he's going to be a favorite. He's starting second. The lineup is set by points, so I think he'll be right up there. He'll be a factor for sure, but we'll see if he's able to get the job done. Braden Bennett also has never won this race, but has only participated a handful of times. He starts on pole position, obviously. We'll see how that goes for him. And it's a 25-lap shootout. Who knows how it's going to go. Honestly, like I said, it's hard to predict this race, but going over the trends would suggest that Rikitti Bros Racing car will win the shootout. 200 pole, Ronnie Woods Motorsports. Do I even need to say anymore? It'll be a Chevrolet, it'll be a rookie, or it'll be a Ronnie Woods Motorsports driver. One of those 3 scenarios will happen, or it'll be all 3. But yeah, I think that's pretty self-explanatory. Chevrolet, even with the new regulations, they still got a stranglehold over Ajax 200 Keystone Light pole qualifying. that's pretty self-explanatory. Then we got to talk about the duels. I, I, I'll be honest. Who cares about the duels? I mean, they're fun. Obviously, they're cool to watch. I'm not saying get rid of them, but they really don't matter in the grand scheme of things. So we'll skip over that. Um, we're also gonna talk truck series. This is another one where it's like, I don't know. Um, it's tough. I think that I'll just pick Doug Acosta because it's a truck series race. Why would you not pick Doug Acosta? That I think that one's pretty self-explanatory. When in doubt in the truck series, you pick Doug Acosta. So yeah, there's that. The Napa 100, that one, it's going to be very interesting. I'm going to go out on a limb and predict Marcus Edwards to win that race. Nearly won it in a photo finish last year. I know I should pick Nick Painter. He's won it the past 2 seasons. But man, Edwards, he is such an underrated plate racer that I'm looking at him like I think he's due. He's due for another win, and I think that he gets it done in the Craftsman Series season opener, spoiling it for the Craftsman regulars as a Cup driver coming down and winning the season opener. But to kick things off, that's just how it goes. And then the Ajax 200. One thing I almost forgot to mention: Austin White, 2023 Smithfield Cup Series champion. He's racing the Ajax 200 in a 4th entry for Katie Birds Racing. Extremely interested to see how he does making his ASCA debut. Yeah, that's going to be certainly interesting to say the least. I don't think he's going to win, but he'll certainly be a factor. I don't know who wins this Ajax 200, man. Todd Kidd's obviously won this race multiple times. Ross Jackson just won it last year. Diego's won it. Burton Reynolds won it. I don't know, man. Honestly, I think I'm going to go with Todd Kidd. I think that him or Doug Bowden is the safest bet when it comes to predicting a plate race. Kidd has won at Ajax Superspeedway each of the past 3 seasons. We all know the controversy about what happened the last time we were here, last time out. But yeah, I got Todd Kidd winning it. Like I said, him or Doug Bowden certainly have to be the favorites. Obviously, favorites are going to emerge throughout the week, just like last year. We all thought it'd be Ronnie Wiz Motorsports, and then it ended up being Toyota and Ross Jackson and Orchidi Bros Racing, who are the ones up front at the end. But yeah, I think that it's going to be Todd Kidd or Doug Bowden who ends up taking home the Ajax 200. And if you had to put something to my head and maybe choose right now, I'd go with Todd Kidd. So there's that. And there's the first episode of Around the Association this season. I apologize, a little rusty, back behind the mic, but I'll get used to it. And yeah, so when we come back next time, we'll recap all of the action throughout what will be an incredibly busy Speed Weeks. And yeah, we'll see you in soon. We'll see you soon. Basically, this is Charles Fallon signing out. See you in the next episode.